Hi there, thanks very much for joining me. I'm Dean, this is Woodwork Journey, and today we're going to be looking at this Mitre saw that I recently posted on my social media. Is £229, or if you want the slightly smaller version, it's currently at £169. I asked people what this was, so let's find out. So as you can see, this is a Hyundai, and I'll probably say that in a bunch of different ways throughout this this video, but there we go. So this is my first impression. So I've been using this for about a week now, and I think I'm able to give you some first impressions about the setup, about the accuracy, all that sort of jazz. Now this is £229 for this 2000 watt 255mm blade, I think it is. Yeah, 255mm blade, or you can get the 205 blade with a 1500 watt motor for 169 at the minute, but you can also get a bit of discount off if you use the code WWJ5. I don't get anything from that whatsoever, but it just saves you a little tiny bit of money off the price. But I'm going to tell you all about it, what I had to do to set it up, and give you my thoughts on it, and then we'll do a proper review later on down the line once I've used it for a while. Okay, let's get into it then. Okay, so I just finished recording, took my apron off, and realised I didn't say how I came across this bad boy. And Hyundai sent this out to me, and I didn't pay for it. However, I get no money if you buy one using my code. I don't get anything like that. And they didn't get to see this video before it was released, and they have no influence over whether I like this or not. You'll see in this video that I try and maintain things to be as factual as possible, and yeah. So I just wanted to let you know that I didn't pay for it, but the company doesn't have any influence over whether this is a positive or negative first impression. All right, let's carry on then. So kicking things off with this, the first and most impressive aspect for this for me is the fact that we have forward facing rails. Now this means that the saw can move backwards and forwards on those rails, and instead of having them going all the way out the back, this is ideal for a small workshop. So when it comes to the usage of this, I don't know why more companies aren't doing this, but it's great to see that a few are without going to crazy bonker prices. So yeah, you've got the nice forward facing rails, saves you a bunch of space out the back. Looking at the side here, what we can see is on the back we've got a little switch, so if we press this down just a touch, pull that out, that releases the lock on the blade, and so that's up and nice and tall now. On the back here we've got the adjustment screw, so we undo that, and then that means that we can turn the saw over to a 45-degree angle. It does only go one way, but that's no big issue for me. One aspect to pay attention to at the moment is yours will not have this little screw that's poking out the top here. Yours will have a grub screw that goes underneath. Now this grub screw is used to set the depth of the cut, so if it's going to go all the way, or how deep it's going to go once you pull that handle down. Now I found that if I moved that, because it is only a grub screw at the end of the day, it doesn't sort of lock itself, and I popped in another bolt. That is just, I think it's an M8, no, an M6 I think it was, with a nut in there, and that means that I can easily just undo that, and I can bring the threaded part down at the bottom, which will allow me to do trenching cuts rather than just full depth cuts, because that will sit and knock onto that piece right there. As far as using the table, it's exactly how you would expect. You've got a lock on the end here, undo that. Your thumb presses this down, which is nice instead of a trigger. Thumb presses it down, and then you can move it around. You've got stops at 15, 22.5, 30, 1.6, and then you've got 45 as well. Once you've decided on which one you're going with, you can go both ways. Then it's a case of just locking it in. Away you go. I was concerned that there was going to be an issue if it wasn't accurate. However, it was accurate, and I will tell you more about that in a moment. Looking down the side here, you can see that we have got a bunch of numbers going down there, and they are centimetres because we are using a the metric system in the UK. So yeah, that's pretty accurate. So if you're looking at getting your measurements from there, from putting your wood on that, then it's going to be pretty much spot on. I may make a zero clearance plate for this at some point in time, but I'm not in any rush to. Right back here, we actually have 3 knobs to play with. Right here, this is actually a Phillips head screw, but it's designed to hold your work holding piece in there. So that goes in nice and snug, and then you can tighten that up with a screwdriver to make sure that's not going anywhere. You've got one of these on both sides. In fact, all of these 3 things you've got on both sides, but you do only have one of these holding sections. Now here we do have an Allen key, and it does have a Phillips head on it, so you can actually tighten things up with that. But yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't realise it was there for the first 3 days of me having this. Next we have a screw here that if you undo that, you can slide the fence forward and back. And after that we've got this one at a nice 45-degree angle. If we undo that, then that bad boy can pop out like so. Now on the rear of the machine, just next to that cable there, we've got the outlet, and this is for your dust collection. They do give you one of these little bags, as we know, not great, but mitre saws generally are not the best, but this actually does do a surprising job, and I'll show you again in a moment. But this does finish quite near the rear of this, so if you want to move this directly up against a wall, you're going to have a hard time with your dust collection hose going out to your dust collection, coming off at sort of a right angle that's that close. It would have been nice to see this maybe just a hair shorter, but you know, it is what it is. Right here there is the bar that lifts up the guard, so when you push this down, the guard gets lifted. Words are hard. It's held on with a Phillips head at the top and another screw at the back there. Now it is quite rattly, and it's not something that you should tighten because it has to obviously move, but I think it doesn't really have to be that loose. But again, it doesn't cause any problems, it doesn't cause any issues with doing what you're doing. It's just something that you're going to be aware of. So what is dust collection like? Well, let's get this going out of here first. I've used this a little bit, so there is a little bit of stuff in the bag, but certainly nothing to get all excitable about because obviously I've been testing it. So I have used that, but the majority of time this is up with my main dust collection hoses. So what I'm going to do is just attach that onto the back of it. We're going to make a few cuts, and we're going to see how the standard boot, which is back here, and again I've got something to say about that, how that collects the dust, because we'll know how much goes in there. So as far as cutting then, there was, what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cuts on a sort of a softwood, and it did throw dust everywhere. Behind the saw is absolutely covered in dust. But let's also see how much this bag collected, because I just thought this was quite interesting personally. Not really a whole hell of a lot. So this, as you would expect, isn't doing anything. And the reason for that is the boot. Let me show you the boot. Okay, so this right here, this is your boot that collects the dust as it comes away from the saw. Now, it doesn't do a great job because it's pretty small. It does come off nice and easily, which is great because it has these little tabs in it. Yeah, the actual job it does is not brilliant. However, I made one myself. And there we have it. It's very ugly at the minute with a mixture of leather and blue tape because I'm still working on it at the moment. But as you can see, it's much, much bigger than the original one. And looking at it from the side here, you can see what happens when I'm pulling that down. You can see that that's way more in line with the bottom of the blade already. But as we go down, like so, it just sits nice and comfortably. It also has a much wider mouth to collect the dust, so as it goes down you've got more of a chance of collecting everything you need to collect. Alrighty, so let's see what difference my little homemade boot makes. This is just about empty again. Nothing on the table. We'll do that up. We'll pop the dust collection hose that they give you back on. Like so. Got exactly the same piece of wood. And let's get cutting. 9, wasn't it? I think so. So that's 9 cuts this time. Make that off. And that has collected a lot more dust than the original boot did. So I think that's moving on to being a success. On the top of the machine, you've got the switch on and off for the laser, which follows this style or where the blade is. That laser is situated underneath at the back of the blade, which is under here, which you can't see because my boot's in the way. But yeah, so that's where that is. It's going to lock these back in again. But you've got a bunch of safety warnings going on there, and then we've got the actual trigger switch. Now you might see that it doesn't go very far. In fact, let me just change the camera angle. Okay, so what we've got, this is the trigger, and it'll only move that far. What has to happen in order to get the thing working is this safety has to be moved. So rather than doing anything kind of weird with your hand to make things nice and comfortable, all you're doing, getting your index finger, sliding it across, and then pulling the motor. But it can't happen unless you do that. Okay, so looking at the setup then. The setup is nice and easy, although there was one thing in particular that bugged me because I didn't see it in the manual. It might be there and I just can't see it, but who knows. Anyway, when it comes to setting up the blade so it's 90 degrees to the table, now obviously you would pop a square in there like so, and you would sight down the front there by lifting that up, and you would put a light maybe behind the square to see how that was. Now mine was ever so slightly off when it arrived, and I couldn't see anywhere how to adjust it. It turned out that right here at the back there is a grub screw inside that hole. Now that isn't something that I don't think it's mentioned anywhere, but that grub screw inside the hole bounces off a sort of a stop that's on the inside of that section, and that means that you can adjust this so it stops at slightly different areas. So you can sight down, light behind there, Allen key in there, look at the blade, and then tighten it or loosen it to make sure that the blade is 100% accurate with the deck. Okay, so to make sure that the fence is 90 degrees to the blade, we want to make sure that we can pop a square next to the blade. Now obviously you set the blade so it sits as far down as it goes so you don't hit the actual teeth, because you don't want the teeth on the to upset your measurements. But then you've got your square going up against this fence, and you can figure out if you are dead on or not. And that's fairly simple and straightforward to do, because if it's out in any way, shape or form, around the back here there is a screw, an Allen headed bolt rather, that you just have to undo that. It's just behind this one. You undo that, and then you can, there's one on the other side as well, and you can move this whole fence arrangement to make sure that you are 90 degrees to the blade. So yeah, that makes that super simple. Okay, so now we get to something that I don't really understand. We've got a gauge kind of red line going on right there that shows on top of that which angle that we're going at, which is fine. However, and you can loosen the screw there to make sure that that is where you want it to be. But the thing that confuses me is because we have these very solid stops, then there's not really anywhere else for this to go. So showing how this lock section works, you undo the screw, you then push the button down, and that lifts from this table, allowing you to twist, and that will then go into whichever one of these you want it to go into. But there's not really any adjustment as far as I can tell. I might be wrong, but I can't see any way of adjusting this, because that would need to be moved one way or the other in order to sort of make any adjustment there. And you've got two cast bits here, the cast bits here, a whole bunch of stuff that stops that from happening. So I don't think you can adjust whether we're sort of accurate in that respect. But recently I've been testing different finishes, and so yeah, excuse that, particularly the state of this one, but you can see that those mitres are actually in pretty damn good shape. I haven't really done anything to it with regards to filling or anything like that. You can see, in fact, that my table saw was out of whack at this point, because this bit of wood was a little bit thicker than this bit of wood. So on the long stretch of things, I had to adjust it. But no, as far as the 45-degree mitres go, I think that that's bang on. To be honest with you, I've not really had any problems with that. So I'm pleased that it's this accurate, because now I haven't been able to make these without doing them by hand, because every mechanical kind of electrical saw that I've had has managed to cock this up. But these mean that I can bang through to make some picture frames nice and quickly if I want to. So happy days. So what are my impressions of this saw? Well, first of all, I am stunned that I haven't seen more people talk about this, because I think for the accuracy for it, for the price of it, I think this is great. The fact that we've got these forward-facing bars just makes such a difference in a small workshop. It really does help, and it means you've got this whole kind of 30 centimeters worth of cutting experience or space that you can do all kinds of things with, which is absolutely superb. I think that the money they're charging for this is entirely reasonable. I think it's got a 2-year warranty on it for personal use, or a 1-year warranty for business use. I will double check on that one. But if you wanted to get the smaller version, obviously it's exactly the same, just a little bit smaller. I do think that you want to bolt it down onto your table. While it's certainly not the lightest saw that I've used, there is a bit of heft to it. It can sort of move around if you're a bit kind of rough with it, so you might want to just throw some screws or bolts into whatever table you're using. But if you're taking this to site, or just using it around the house or in the garden or whatever else, then you'll get on with it perfectly fine. It's not going to be an issue that you're not bolting it down to anything. Even with the stock blade on it, the 2000 watts I found is more than capable of cutting through anything I've thrown at it. I haven't put any oak through it yet, but I have put some hardwoods through it, and it's been perfectly fine with things like walnut. So, you know, that's all right. And again, it's with the stock blade with these teeny tiny little teeth on it. Now, negatives. I would say the instructions are not great, because, as I said, I couldn't find the grub screw hole, and so I didn't know how to adjust that. Also, for the screw on the side here that I told you about, that's got a grub screw normally in there to set the depth. By adding an actual nut and bolt, then you've instantly got something that allows you to do trenching cuts, and I did that today when I made a sort of a telescopic holder for my studio light. And so that works out really well. So I think they've missed a trick there, because the grub screw, if you were just to loosen it out so it kind of is out and about, it's just wiggling around. You can't lock it in any way, shape or form. So the addition of a bolt there just made that more usable. Now, when it comes to the boot, as I said, I'm using my own sort of thing that I'm working on now. I think I saw Inspire Woodcraft talk about that, so I've kind of gone off of his idea that he's done, and yeah, it seems to be working better, as I showed you earlier. But all in all, I think it's more than accurate enough for me for what I need to do. It's a bit loud. It's a bit loud, but it is what it is. For the price, I think that this is a horrifically overlooked overlooked piece of kit, because I wasn't going to have another Mitre saw in my workshop because of the space idea of things, and the fact that the forward-facing bars and accurate cuts are generally horribly expensive. But having this has changed my mind on that, so I've had to reorganise my workshop to accommodate it, because this puppy isn't going anywhere. It's definitely staying with me now, and I'm more than happy to carry on using it. So hopefully that has answered your questions. If you've got any more, please please pop them down in the comments. Like I said, WWJ5 will give you a discount on the Hyundai website, and I will put a link to that in the description and at the top of the comments as well. But yeah, if you've got any other further questions, stick them below. If you like this first impression, give me a shout and let me know that you liked it with a thumbs up or even a subscription. That'll be kind. See you very soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.